Every day is a gift and a blessing to me, and especially when I've had even a modicum of a good night's sleep. I sleep in a little 12 by 10 room with a lot of light. It has a transparent roof. Lots of light comes in and windows. I can see what the day is going to be, and I can look down on birds in the trees and see what they're doing. And by the time I was in my early 30s, I looked around, I was relatively successful as a scientist, well-published, well-known, perhaps respected. I was in a tenure-track position at a university, and my mother was pleased, but I mean, this is killing me. I felt that modern life was fundamentally unhealthy, not just for me, but for everyone. I got the impression that everyone was sick. A major topic of conversation after how rich they were, how poor they were, was how sick they were or not, their health problems. And so I felt to be really healthy in a self-honoring way, I had to remove myself from the strictures that were making me do things that were stupid. In that, if I went to a business meeting at the Peachtree Plaza in Georgia, I was encouraged to wear a suit and tie. It was 100 goddamn degrees outside. What idiot would be wandering around in 100 degrees with a nice light suit, but still a suit, sweat pouring off of me, my armpits like Niagara on a wet day, and then go into a room where the temperature was 60 degrees at enormous expense to pretend the heat wasn't there. What? Why don't we all just wear loincloths, maybe a tank top, and have a real discussion? No, we had to dress up as though reality weren't real. And that's just one minor but idiotic example. Well, it's a good example of idiocy to conform to something which was sickening. I did not want to become involuntarily sick simply to fit in. And so if fitting in meant being sick, then I didn't want to do it. And almost everybody I talked to, my colleagues, other scientists, friends and family said, Ryan, you got to fit in. You got to do this. And everybody's going to be sick a little bit. So what? I do not like this having to do things which appear to me non-productive and non-productive for myself. Where can I go? What can I do? And unfortunately, what I found is people were the healthiest where they were poor and isolated, where they didn't appear to have the funds to buy the toys that would divert them or blind them to ongoing ill health.
Compost, paper towels, and a compost bucket, earth clay.
This little island out here was an opportunity for me to be withdrawn from culture and society and to just take care of myself on land that I bought the right to pay taxes on, sell the stuff I didn't need, and try to live as pure as I could in terms of clean food, clean water, and no slavery strictures, and that meant a job. Almost all jobs are slavery, especially if you have to do something you either don't want to do or makes you feel horrible. And I listened to the morning commute as I was planning my escape from the mainland. And it's like, oh yeah, traffic is blocked up to heaven and everything's going to hell. There's a big accident out in front of Dingleberry Square and we don't think anybody's going to be able to get through for 2 or 3 days. Why are they all going somewhere at the same time? That's moronic! And what are they doing when they get there? They're pushing paper around and think they're doing something neat. Spend as much time as I can in the restroom. Is that why I have 20 years of education? Is that why I have a PhD and all this stuff? Educated says chuck the education and act smart instead of being smart. I don't live here alone. I have a live-in human partner, a Happy Day. I share this ridge with 2 magnificent birds, ravens, and I'm pretty sure the same ravens for over 40 years. They know me, my habits, what I'm doing. They see a certain move and they know I have just killed a chicken. They know that they are going to get chicken guts.
Smoggy. Took the water. See if I can see Mount Rainier, 175 miles away. Yep, all smogged up. Olympics, barely see them.
I worked as an analytical chemist for Shell Oil, successfully and happily, and almost jumped onto the Shell Oil bandwagon for the rest of my life. But I had a botany class which changed my mood and attitude, because unlike being in a laboratory all the time, botanists were outside collecting plants, working on their tans, looking at stuff in a microscope, and watching living things. Now, what fun!
Ho! 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 Ho!
Everything I had been working with as a chemist had been dead. And some were dead for 100 million years. Petroleum products, turds of past life. Eventually, smart professors told me, Ryan, science is not the search for truth. Science is the transmission of doubt. That as soon as you believe in something, you are trapped in it, and you devote yourself to supporting your belief structure, not to continuing to ask questions. Science can become a weird form, and I do mean weird, form of religion, where belief becomes more important than questioning. I think of the raccoon in a cage and watching that raccoon test every corner where every piece of wire was. and then finding out the loosest place and then working on it, not believing that it was trapped in that cage. And many raccoons get out because of that. I think that there is a comfort of approval by the other prisoners in the trap of a belief system that tends to force us into a curiosity sleep where we no longer honor the curiosity. And it's a group kind of unwanting or not wanting to know that things are not the way we see them.
Hope I don't end up eating something because. All right. Oh, beautiful buds. Just gorgeous. So these are to be next year's leaves and flowers. Strongly antifungal. And you can smell aromatic. And it really sticks to one's head. Great. Poplar bindi. Oh, fell off.
One of the nifty things about living out here on this island is that not just myself, but several other individuals and households choose to live as poorly as possible and still be minimally comfortable, feeling that the curse of affluence is a kind of intellectual and physical laziness, which is pathological, because other people have thought out neat stuff that helped you out. The rototiller, just tear up the ground like crazy. You can plant a whole lot, whereas our bodies and a few hand tools may take more energy to utilize and to produce food. We can set them down and leave them for a decade. Complicated machinery has an intensive care unit aspect to it. And we wanted to get away from this sensitive instrumentation that we couldn't fix ourselves, keeping ourselves healthy at the same time. Earning money puts this energy bubble between oneself and what one wants and needs. It clouds clear thinking because the acquisition and maintenance of the bubble, the money bubble, becomes an object in and of itself that if you don't attend to it, you can't get what's beyond the bubble. The smaller that bubble, I think, in terms of the per capita through flow of cash or its equivalent, then the easier you can breathe when you don't have very much.
Cold water from the runoff tank. Seawater, seawater run. Why add salt when you could just use seawater? medium salty.
And I think money replaces the exchange of human energy so that we are all desperate for human energy and we try to buy it through entertainment, people amusing us. And that to me is infantilization. It's the same way as parents, being a parent and a grandparent, around the wall of the crib, jingle-jangling in front of the child or giving them little amusements. And so we have, I believe, a population, maybe not 7 billion, but certainly billions of people who spend a lot of their resources regressing to a semi-infantile or toddler state where they're amused with non-productive or non-nutritive events that have to be novel or different.
Hi, my name is Dead Stallion. Who are you?
My basic intellectual level is the simpler, the better. I think that will save us. Not stupidity, but really nice simplicity. First 10 years on Waldron, from 76 to 86, I didn't have to think about earning a living. Instead, what I could think about is, how can I invent a new kind of music? How can I invent a different language? How can Sarah and I have our children at home and educate them and make their clothes and teach them the secrets of the universe? Spent a lot of time singing and dancing. We forgot about the firewood. We didn't know that the tribes always had a firewood problem. It gets wet 6 months out of the year. We had to pay people for firewood. Oh, Lordy, it was awful. I think what we had was a false sense of purity through voluntary poverty, and that we were somehow better than people who are always striving for money. Now, we collect and harvest between 20 and 25 different herbs, and only ones that we like to, that are in abundance here and make a profit. It gets me out of the house, keeps me healthy. I take no medicines, I have no diseases, I have no problems. I'm 75. And when your dad dies at 46, being overweight, hypertension, basically dying from affluence, it's a real lesson. Either you're going to die at 47, outliving my year, goddammit, or you're not going to live like that.
So I leave him in the yo-ho-ho after all that. Now. Oh, those are toilet papers.
I do sweep the floor.
I'll do an ID on this if I can.
The community on this island has evolved out of desperate escapees from the American mainland and Maine culture. Hundreds of people have moved here, and most of them have left in part because of financial problems. No way to earn a living.
And here's the original Waldron School, 1893. Still educating our children. Duskin and Boche, I do this for you. All right. Thanks, Jeff. Should we start a little fire in the woods just to justify?
There's not much novelty unless you're into just watching the tide come and go, or not watching anything, just letting your eyes take a holiday. If you're not satisfied with that, then you'll need to go somewhere and be entertained. And so I think that Waldron has been described as a huge playground for people that never grew up.
Because we have no home delivery, we are blessed by the USPS, it's the plug, with free lockbox postal boxes. Isn't that a wonderful thing? I think.
What I've noticed over the years is that unless there is a dense fog or really low clouds, I have no true darkness here. I'm surrounded in a 100-mile radius by 4.5 million people. I'm surrounded by their ambient light. And so there's always a shadow on my bedroom walls from lights cast 25 to 50 miles away. And people came here to escape other people. So there was no overt attempt to have a village or to recreate a village or a town. And for some years, Waldron is a place that's never found because we kind of don't exist. Or we're, oh, Waldron Island, is that where all the communists live? That was pretty big in the 50s, even though they were just Quakers who would get together and sit around silently on some Sundays. And then it was the hippies, of course, and then it was the free love commune. We served a function of being never land of other, whatever the popular other was at the time. But basically, it was people just kind of wanting to be alone or by themselves. Does that hurt?
It's tender, yeah.
Okay, good. And so I think, yeah, you've got edema here, it's swollen, and so that is causing pressure. One of the things that I do on the island, besides entertain people with stories of the past, I end up being the island go-to person for medical problems. And I've really appreciated that because I've learned a lot about medicine from just helping people who didn't know quite as much as I thought I did.
So this is a house that I started building on the 21st of June, 1976, the summer solstice. All those posts are cedar, old growth cedar, wind and firefalls that we found in the woods, and then we knifed away any rotten wood and chopped off any branch ends. And they're pretty crude. We didn't sand them or paint them with anything. Everything you see there was carried uphill, and it was carried 1/8 of a mile and about 200 feet in elevation. It's steep. So that's the big roof expanse for collecting rainwater, which is stored in that aluminum tank there, almost 1,000 gallons above ground. It has an aluminum bottom that my friend Pete Welty from Orcas Island welded on, as well as 2 handles so we could carry it up the hill. It didn't work out that way. It was too much weight. We had to roll it up the hill and hope that it didn't roll back down and smoosh us. none of the sides are the same length. So this is the longest one, which is 26 feet. And the other one is 25 feet. We did not want a squared or right-angled floor plan. Everywhere I visited, wonderful in the world, if not wonderfully, Eastern Turkey and Armenia, Nepal, Peru, Pittsburgh, there'd be these indigenous local buildings, and a lot of them did not have right angles. I figure all the Incas couldn't be all wrong. And the foundation was built last. It was finished in 1983, 7 years later, because we had to carry all the rocks uphill. Minimum of a 2-foot thick foundation and socketed into the bedrock, and that was so the rats couldn't chew through. And they never have, fortunately. But, you know, I just squish all the ants I can. I've got thousands of them. And it gives new ones a chance. But boy, once I start squishing them out here, they send out an energy signal, and suddenly, now I've only squished 3 of them, but we'll squish maybe a dozen or 2 here. Where are they the rest of the time? There must be this huge ant city in there somewhere, inside these nice old growth cedar logs. And, boy, there are a lot of ants here today. Hi, ladies, party down. Dr. Drum will give you a love pat.
In the early days, we maintained health, but we were not comfortable. Eventually, we realized that because we hadn't been brought up as 2 upper middle class urban kids, knowing anything but the urban way of life, we were trying to do the work of many people and make it all fit together, and we could still be happy and sleep in and watch the sun rise, watch the birds rise. But no, we didn't have the energy to do that because we didn't have the education, we didn't have the skills. We were attempting to reinvent the first steps of civilization while we were discarding the advances of civilization. And it was hard work at both ends because we both knew that it was a lot easier to buy food that was already prepared. We didn't even have bicycles. Bicycles, rubber tires, all this vile stuff that polluted the environment. And we weren't going to survive if we tried to survive with a high purity, not doing anything wrong. When the boy's mom was pregnant with our first child, and carrying water uphill from almost 100 feet below the garden, one of the neighbors said, you know, pumps are really cheap, and pipe is really cheap, and gasoline was really cheap in the late 70s, relatively speaking. And so, unbeknownst to me, while I was off on a crab boat, they helped Sarah rig up a water supply with that pump. And oh my God, when I came back, the garden was beautiful, just lush. Well, she carried a lot of water. Then I saw this funny little 55-gallon old drum up there. Huh, what's that? And this black hose. She says, I know you're not gonna like it, but I just couldn't carry up enough water to keep the garden alive. And one of the neighbors said, just get a pump. And so I did. I hope you don't hate me. For a microsecond, I hated her. She was 9 months pregnant and just getting ready to hatch at any time. And here I was tempted to give her hell for being smart, but not being pure, because it was gasoline. Oh no, poisoning our water supply, poisoning our air. And then I think I looked out, and because it was the first week in August, hadn't rained for 2 months, and there was this purple haze in all the air from the 2 million people that lived within a 100-mile radius of us. All of their volatile effluvia had turned our air this kind of brown-purple color. We live on top of the mountain. We could see it. We were breathing that stuff. It was falling on all of our garden. Why was I about to give her hell? Uh-oh, stupid. And it went from there slowly to we were gonna paddle and row everywhere. Too much stuff. Get a boat motor. Oh, all right. And then, pregnant with the second kid, can't work the crosscut saw. I'm sorry, but the baby's in the way. Okay, chainsaw. And then finally, carrying 2 kids and a backpack, pulling a cart, not smart. We decided we'll use our intelligence and buy an old truck. All of these were basically withdrawing from a vision of how we would be pure, not how we would be smart, not how we would survive, but how we would deny and reject our backgrounds, basically. And so it's a weird form of rebellion and pretending that we knew the right way to do things when we didn't have a clue. The thrill of growing one's own food. And growing one's own food or catching it, there's an excitement there of self-reliance, freedom from dependency. It's sort of like leaving home.
Wild arugula. Got its own little patch here. And this is soil in development. You can see ashes, seaweed is piled in here, and hay. And this stuff is just taking advantage of a free place to grow. Okay, sweet Sicily, down the hatch. Dandelion, arugula, chickweed, sweet Sicily, and yarrow. So that's 5 edibles, and we're just getting started here.
When Sarah and I and the boys were really gardening full-time, and that was pumping out, and we sold vegetables, eggs, chickens, amazing. But that's all we did. Day and night, we were always tired.
This is washed up on the beach, old twine of some kind. There's a whole big wad of it. So I just untangled it all, started using it over and over again. And it is photo-degrading. See all those little white shreds that come off. Can't use it for the herbs, but I can use it for my mulch bag.
We found in the early days that a lot of our cooking was awful. And sprouts, unless we were really hungry, were not as appealing as they had been for the first couple of years. And that was about the time when we realized that a lot of our food cravings were not just boredom, but that we were a little short on some nutrients.
But there we have it. Lunch.
Our quinoa comes from Bolivia. Almost all our vegetables we grow or have grown.
Really a nice bag of wild greens. Oh, it's the communication stand. Who's this? Uh-oh.
We grow a lot of garlic and eat garlic probably with every meal. We get chickens to eat locally. We get eggs to eat locally. We still eat a lot of goat meat because other folks who raise goats, for some reason, have lost their enthusiasm for eating goat. And for greens, we eat a lot of kale. We probably eat between 75 and 100 pounds of dried popcorn every year. Those are just the little kernels.
Perfect. Who would have thought? More yellow. Nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast. Yep. And powdered kelp.
And that's, oh, what a yummy thing. Oh, just eat it by the bucketful. And it's also what we take now to potlucks.
All right. This is this powdered. And there is the mill right there. Oh.
For so many years, we had been pure and had a dedicated 2-quart Revere-ware copper-bottom saucepan with the standard lid. And we'd heat up oil with popcorn in it, and there'd be practically clouds of evaporating, burning olive oil. The hot air popper required electrons in excess of our solar panels and a little tiny inverter. So then we had to get a generator to run the hot air popper. And pretty soon we had food preferenced ourselves into the 21st century. One of the things that my wonderful paternal grandfather said when I was discussing something I thought I might want to do, but was potentially very difficult, the detail of which I have forgotten, this is many decades ago, and he said to me, Ryan, temptation resisted is always regretted. And he was referring not to stealing candy. As a wholesale grocer, we always had lots of candy from Grandpa, but to not following my dreams to the point of they're not going to work out. I was totally surprised when I became a champion wrestler. I was a scrawny little geek, but I thought I'd give it a try. And there are other things that I tried to do that I failed miserably at. Pre-med, for instance. But I tried. And so I have no regrets about not having tried. And I don't have regrets about having tried. I feel perfectly comfortable about having failed with exuberance or failed with devotion. And so I think a lot of the people I see as patients, as a practicing medical herbalist, is this big mass, sometimes ill-defined, of regret and not having done or not having tried or not having even considered things that might have been not illegal, but so much as not approved of. And so that approval external becomes more important than comfort within. The mind makes the body sick, so it has something else to think about. Failure imposed by bad diet and wrong ways of moving, living inside all the time, and most of all, shaving. I don't remember who said it, but somebody, maybe many people said, it's always easy to be nice. Or be as nice as you can in every situation. And having been an absolute asshole for much of my life, because I could be and get away with it, I now think, oh, what a jerk. I didn't have to do that, but it was a way of establishing dominance. And so what I use, being a scientist and intellectually, if not gifted, just aggressive, was to assert dominance by being smarter than anybody else, by a very narrowly defined smartness. And I think that's really easy to do, where people are not allowed to be happy, healthy human beings. And so I think that might be the best goal for science and religion, the greatest amount of personal joy and health possible, but not to hoard it. So spend all your kisses. Life is short. That can be erased at any time. Look. Just hundreds of pages. Everything I ever sold, starting in 1984. There's 30 years of everything here, where they paid as well as, see, expenses. It's all in this one book, and I figure when this book is done, I'm probably done. That's nice to see, isn't it? I've got 111 pages to go. It's going to be a lot of herbs and seaweed. Yep.
scent of the herbalist. Farewell, friend.